You thought we had uncovered the Isle of Wight's darkest secrets, yet 12 more places still whisper with cries, shadows, and restless ghosts that refuse to let the island rest, waiting in silence for those who dare to listen. Golden Hill Fort. High above the western edge of the Isle of Wight stands Golden Hill Fort. Its star-shaped walls, once built to guard against invasion, still loom over the countryside. From the outside, it is a relic of Victorian military pride, but inside, it has long been a place where silence is broken by footsteps that have no source. The fort was built in the mid-19th century to strengthen the island's defenses. During both World Wars, it was garrisoned, its casemates and tunnels alive with the sound of soldiers. Today, it has been partially converted into private apartments, but the past lingers heavily in its stone. Strange reports have persisted for decades. Visitors and residents alike speak of heavy boots marching along the corridors, echoing through empty halls. Shadows flit across stairwells where no living guard is posted. Most chilling are the apparitions themselves, a World War I soldier uniform, intact, pacing as if still on duty, and a sailor seen standing with arms folded, watching silently from the shadows. One account tells of a resident who heard footsteps outside his flat at night. Expecting another neighbor, he opened the door, only to find the passageway deserted. As he closed the door again, the sound resumed, measured and deliberate, fading only when he called out into the dark. The atmosphere at Golden Hill Fort is not one of violence, but of presence, as if the garrison never truly left their watch, continuing long after the wars ended. Some believe the soldier and the sailor remained to guard the walls, bound to the duty that defined their lives. Others feel the echoes are simply the building remembering its past. Whatever the cause, those who walk its corridors after nightfall often describe the same sensation, that they are not alone, that unseen eyes follow their steps. At Golden Hill, fort history is not silent. It marches still. Wight Mouse Inn. The Wight Mouse Inn sits quietly in the village of Charley, looking out toward the sea. By day, it feels warm and welcoming, its rooms filled with light and the smell of good food. Yet behind the cheer lies a reputation that has unsettled guests for generations. The inn has stood for centuries, sheltering travelers along the island's southern coast. Its beams and stairways have seen sailors, farmers, and families pass through. But some say a guest never checked out. There are stories of a bearded sailor who appears on the top landing. He is described as solid, unmistakable, his sea-worn features clear as day. Witnesses say he lingers only for a moment before fading away, leaving behind an icy stillness. Some believe he may have been lost to the waters of Chal Bay, drawn back endlessly to the place where he once rested. Objects, too, have been known to vanish within the inn. A child's lunchbox, ornaments, even pieces of furniture have been found, moved, or misplaced, only to reappear later in unlikely corners. Guests would wake to find belongings missing, only for them to be returned days later, as though someone had been playing a quiet trick. One guest recalled waking in the night to hear the sound of footsteps outside the bedroom. Expecting a fellow visitor, they opened the door, but the landing was empty. Moments later, the sound of creaking floorboards moved away, though no figure could be seen. The Wight Mouse today is known more for hospitality than for hauntings, but the legends remain. The sailor still walks its upper floors, and the strange games with missing objects still linger in memory. For those who spend the night, the inn is not just a country retreat, but a place where shadows watch quietly from the stairs. The Blenheim. On the high street of Ventnor stands the Blenheim, a familiar inn, whose windows look out over the bustling town. Yet behind its doors, visitors have spoken of encounters that reach far beyond the ordinary. The most striking presence is that of a young woman. Witnesses describe her as being in her 20s, with blonde hair and a silk dress that glimmers faintly in the light. She has been seen drifting across rooms, her figure pale and sorrowful, before vanishing into the walls. No record tells us her name, but her image has been repeated by guests over the years with unsettling consistency. Below the inn, in its cellar, lies another mystery. A phantom man has been seen walking straight through a sealed doorway. Local lore tells that this entrance once led to a smuggler's tunnel, part of the hidden trade that thrived along the island's coast. To see a figure vanish into stone, where a tunnel once stood, is to feel that the secrets of Ventnor's past are still alive in the earth. There are other signs too. Sudden cold spots settle in the cellar, even when the air above is still. At night, the sound of barrels rolling has been heard echoing through the underground chambers, though nothing is found disturbed. Staff have reported shadows under doors, the sense of someone waiting just outside, and glasses swinging gently on their own. One worker recalled the shock of being tapped on the shoulder only to turn and find the room empty. While the Blenheim thrives as a place of company and laughter, it holds a darker layer of memory. The woman in silk, the phantom of the smuggler's tunnel, the restless barrels all suggest that beneath the ordinary face of the inn lies a story still moving in the shadows. For those who linger here after dark, the Blenheim is not just a pub, but a gateway into the island's haunted past. Albion Hotel. At the edge of Freshwater Bay stands the Albion Hotel, its windows gazing out over the restless sea. By day, the bay is a place of beauty, where waves crash against the shore and gulls sweep across the horizon. But when night falls, the sound of the tide carries with it a far more sorrowful echo. Guests and locals alike have spoken of a woman's voice drifting across the shingle. Her cry is carried on the wind, mingled with the steady rhythm of the sea. Some hear her calling as though searching for something, while others describe only sobs rising and falling with the waves. Alongside the voice come footsteps on the beach, faint but steady, though no figure can be found when the sands are searched. The story behind this haunting is as tragic as it is chilling. It is said that long ago, a woman driven by despair cast herself and her baby into the bay. The ocean took them both, and her grief has echoed along the shoreline ever since. Some claim to see her shape in the surf, a figure stooping, as if to cradle a child, only to dissolve into foam. One late-night walker described stopping still at the sound of crying so close it seemed to come from just beyond the rocks. He searched, but found no one, until he realized the sound rose directly from the water. Others have admitted that when the wind is right, the cries seem to come from beneath their feet, as though the very sand still remembers. The Albion Hotel remains a haven for travelers, its rooms filled with comfort and its views unmatched. Yet its location on this sorrowful bay ensures the legend endures. For every wave that breaks on the shore may carry not just the sea's song, but the echo of a mother's final grief, replayed forever in the darkness. Vernon Cottage. On the winding lanes of Shanklin stands Vernon Cottage, a picturesque restaurant by day, adorned with flowers and a warm welcome. Yet behind the laughter of visitors and the comfort of food lies one of the island's gentler but no less chilling hauntings. The most frequently reported figure is that of a young girl. She has been seen racing from the cottage, her steps light her dress, fluttering as though caught in a breeze. Witnesses say she runs down the lane with a sense of purpose, as if to meet someone waiting just beyond sight. At the end of her path stands a young man, and for an instant they seem to acknowledge one another. Then, without a word, both figures fade into nothing. Locals believe this recurring vision may be the replay of a story of love never fulfilled. Perhaps two young souls who were once parted by tragedy still find their way back to each other in this fleeting moment. Others suggest it is no more than a memory imprinted in the walls and lanes, endlessly repeating itself for those willing to watch. One visitor recalled stepping aside as the girl ran past her form, so vivid he was certain she was real. Yet when he turned, the lane was empty. Another described hearing faint laughter just outside the restaurant, only to find the path deserted and silent. Unlike some hauntings that inspire dread, Vernon Cottage's phantom is tinged with melancholy rather than menace. Still, the sight of two figures appearing from nothing and vanishing in silence leaves an impression that lingers long after the meal is finished. Today, the cottage thrives as a place of cheer and hospitality. But for those who glimpse the running girl and her waiting companion, it becomes more than a restaurant. It is a place where a fragment of the past lives on, repeating endlessly, a ghostly rendezvous that refuses to be forgotten. Paramount Cafe. Along the busy high street of Shanklin sits the Paramount Cafe, a place that to most is nothing more than a stop for food and conversation. Yet behind its ordinary face lies one of the island's strangest hauntings, centered on a figure known only as Charlie. Staff and customers alike have reported a phantom reclining in a chair within the lounge. He appears sprawled as though asleep, and even snores audibly. Curtains have been drawn open only to reveal him for an instant before his form dissolves into air. Witnesses describe him as a man between 40 and 50 years old, dark-haired, with piercing eyes, his presence as unsettling as it is vivid. Charlie has been blamed for a host of disturbances. Knives and utensils vanish from the kitchen only to reappear weeks later. Spray bottles, pens, and menu pads disappear without explanation, turning up again in unlikely places. Light bulbs along the stairs blow out more often than chance should allow. Staff working late hear footsteps and the sound of movement from rooms known to be empty. At times, doors rattle violently, and on more than one occasion, the floor has been found spattered with spilled drinks no hand had poured. One account tells of a waitress passing through the quiet back area when she felt her ear sharply flicked, though no one stood nearby. Another staff member recalled the sensation of being watched as utensils shifted behind them. A visitor once described sitting at a table when a cold draft swept through, accompanied by the sound of heavy breathing, though every window was shut. The cafe itself continues to thrive, a place of laughter and daily routine. Yet its reputation as Charlie's haunt remains firmly rooted in local memory. To some, he is a mischievous presence, playing tricks rather than causing harm. To others, his dark eyes, glimpsed in shadow, suggest something far more unsettling. At the Paramount Cafe, the ordinary bustle of daily life mixes with the extraordinary. For those who have seen the man in the chair or heard his unseen footsteps, the place is no longer simply a cafe, but a stage where the past and the inexplicable sit side by side. Hazley Manor. Tucked away in the countryside near Arreton lies Hazley Manor, a grand estate whose history stretches back centuries. Its quiet gardens and stately rooms carry the charm of another age, yet also harbor echoes that have unsettled many who pass through its grounds. Among the most curious figures is a ghostly gentleman, dressed not in modern clothes, but in breeches, leather boots, and a wide-brimmed black hat. Witnesses say he laughs silently, his shoulders shaking, though no sound escapes his lips. His sudden appearance on pathways or in shadowed corners has startled guests, the soundless mirth lingering in the air long after he has gone. Hazley's legends extend beyond this mysterious figure. Phantom monks have been reported at one of the old pools where they appear to stand with fishing rods in hand. They are seen casting lines into waters that ripple, though no bait or catch is ever revealed. Some who have encountered them speak of a profound calm, while others describe only a sense of being intruders upon a ritual no longer meant for human eyes. Inside the manor itself, there are tales of footsteps echoing through the tea room. Staff have turned quickly, expecting another person, only to find the room empty. The sound continues for a few steps, then ceases abruptly, leaving silence heavy in the air. One visitor described pausing in the gardens when he heard faint laughter behind him. Turning, he caught sight of the man in the black hat, smiling broadly but without voice. In a blink, the figure melted into the hedge, leaving only the rustle of leaves. Today, Hazley Manor is valued as a piece of heritage, yet its reputation for hauntings is impossible to ignore. The laughing gentleman, the monks at the pools, the unseen footsteps all suggest that life here has not entirely departed. For those who walk its grounds, the manor is more than history. It is a place where echoes of the past remain active, lingering like guests who never checked out. Dimbola Museum. On the edge of Freshwater stands Dimbola Museum, once the home of Julia Margaret Cameron, the celebrated Victorian photographer. Today, it is a place of art and history, its walls lined with images that shaped the beginnings of portrait photography. Yet some believe that Cameron herself has never truly left. Visitors have reported glimpsing her figure, drifting through the rooms, a woman in 19th century dress, moving with the air of someone inspecting her work. She appears quietly sometimes, only as a shadow, at the edge of vision other times, as a fleeting reflection in the glass of framed photographs. Equally striking is the scent that has been detected in the building. It is a sharp chemical tang unmistakable to those who have worked with photographic development. Long after the chemicals were cleared away, the smell has returned suddenly in empty rooms, hanging in the air as though Julia was still tending to her plates and prints. One story tells of a visitor who stood before a famous portrait when she noticed the odor strong and fresh. Looking up, she thought she saw a woman standing behind her in the reflection. When she turned, there was nothing but the empty gallery. Not everyone agrees that Dimbola is haunted. In recent years, staff have claimed no unusual activity, yet the persistence of the tales suggests that the bond between creator and home may linger beyond death. For admirers of Julia Margaret Cameron, the idea that her spirit might still move through the museum is not unwelcome. To see a fleeting figure or to catch the scent of chemicals is perhaps to feel her passion for photography alive again. Dimbola Museum remains dedicated to preserving art and history, but for some, it also preserves a presence. The lady of the house may still walk its rooms, keeping careful watch over the images she gave to the world. Richmond's Cake and Coffee Co. On St. James's Street in Newport once stood a branch of Jessop's, later becoming Richmond's Cake and Coffee Co. To passers-by, it is just another shopfront, but to those who worked within it, carried a reputation for disturbances that no ordinary explanation could settle. Staff told of heavy footsteps echoing through the rooms when no one else was present. Doors would slam open and shut as though caught in a storm, though the air inside was still. At night, the burglar alarms would activate without reason, forcing workers back into the building to find nothing disturbed. Even the electricity seemed to rebel, lights flickering and cutting out, only to blaze back without warning. More chilling still was the sound of hammering on the front door, insistent and loud, yet always unanswered by the empty street outside. One employee recalled rushing down to open it convinced someone was trying to get in. The door swung wide to reveal nothing but the quiet road, and yet the hammering seemed to echo still in their ears. Perhaps the most unsettling tale is of the upstairs room where 4 large skips, each heavy enough to require 2 people to move, were found dragged across the floor. No one had touched them. No marks of force were found, yet they had shifted as though pushed by an invisible strength. The sound of dragging echoed through the building, leaving those present shaken long after. Today, the shop continues under a new name, its tables filled with customers enjoying ordinary life. Yet the stories from its past linger. The footsteps, the slamming doors, the unseen hands that could move weight no living person had touched, they remain part of its reputation. For those who know its history, Richmond's is not just a cafe, but a reminder that some presences insist on making themselves heard. God's Providence. In the heart of Newport, in St. Thomas's Square, stands God's Providence, a quaint tea room with centuries of history woven into its walls. To most, it is a place of comfort, serving tea and cakes to locals and visitors alike. Yet behind its ordinary charm lie stories that chill those who work there after dark. One of the most enduring tales is that of a little girl. She has been seen drifting quietly in what is known as the gift room, her form pale and fleeting, vanishing as quickly as she appears. Staff have spoken of the uncanny sensation of being touched lightly on the arm or shoulder when no one is near. Guests, too, have remarked on sudden shivers as though a small hand brushed against them unseen. In recent years, those working in the building have shared unsettling experiences. A young waitress once felt her ear flicked sharply, though she was meters away from any colleague. On another occasion, the proprietor heard his own name whispered directly into his ear while he was completely alone inside. The sound was clear and close, and yet the building was locked and every window shut. The atmosphere in certain corners is said to change without warning. Warmth fades, the air grows heavy, and a silence falls as though the room itself is holding its breath. In such moments, some staff refuse to remain alone. While God's Providence continues to thrive as a friendly business, its ghostly reputation endures. The child in the gift room, the unseen, touches the whispers in empty space. They remind all who work or visit that the building's history is still alive in ways no one can quite explain. For those who linger too long after closing, the tea room is not only a place of tea and laughter, but of shadows and voices that refuse to be forgotten. Knighton Gorges. Among the many haunted sites of the Isle of Wight, none is spoken of with more awe than Knighton Gorges. Though the manor house itself has been gone for more than 2 centuries, its reputation as the island's most haunted location continues to grow. The estate was once among the grandest on the island, its Elizabethan Tudor-style house rising proudly above the hamlet of Knighton near Newchurch. Its history, however, is steeped in tragedy. One of its earliest residents, Hugh de Morville, found refuge here after his part in the murder of Archbishop Thomas Becket in 1170. Later centuries brought further misfortune, including the mysterious death of Tristram Dillington in 1718, and most notoriously, the deliberate destruction of the manor by George Maurice in 1821. He ordered it ruined out of spite toward his daughter, who had defied him by marrying a clergyman. Even though the walls have long since vanished, the site has refused to rest. Locals tell of the manor appearing again on certain nights, a phantom house glowing faintly in the moonlight. Witnesses describe walking the grounds and seeing windows lit from within, only for the vision to dissolve into darkness the moment they approached. Others have spoken of ghostly figures in period dress wandering the lanes nearby as though the residents still walk home to a building that no longer exists. One visitor recounted pausing by the gates when he felt a sudden drop in temperature. Looking up, he saw the outline of the house standing in the field where only grass should have been. For a heartbeat, it looked whole, its roof and chimneys rising against the night sky. Then it flickered and vanished, leaving only emptiness behind. Knighton Gorges remains a place of fascination, a ruin that refuses to fade. The tragedies of its past and the bitterness of its last owner seem bound to the soil, replaying themselves in shadow and illusion. To this day, those who walk its grounds after dusk speak of silence heavier than night, and of a house that should be gone, yet still stands stubborn as a ghost itself. Osborne House. On the northern shores of the Isle of Wight stands Osborne House, the beloved holiday retreat of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Built as a sanctuary for the royal family, it remains one of the island's most celebrated landmarks. Yet some say the Queen herself never truly left its grand corridors. Visitors have long spoken of strange sights at Osborne. Photographs taken of the house show faces or figures peering from windows, though none were visible to the eye at the time. Guests walking the gardens have described flickers of light in the upper rooms shifting, as if someone moved from window to window, though the house lay empty. It is perhaps inevitable that Victoria's spirit is linked to the home she cherished most. After Albert's death, she found solace here, retreating into its rooms and surrounding herself with memory. Many believe her attachment was so strong that even in death, she lingers unwilling to release the place where her happiest hours were spent. Accounts tell of shadows glimpsed along the corridors, of the faint rustle of skirts brushing against the floor, and of a presence that seems to move just out of sight. One visitor reported hearing the distinct sound of a woman sighing beside them as they stood in an empty hall, the air heavy with a sense of grief. Others have felt sudden chills while gazing at the grand staircase as if watched from above. For some, these experiences are enough to believe that Queen Victoria still walks the halls of Osborne, a sovereign who has chosen never to abandon the home that comforted her through loss. Osborne House remains a monument of royal history, filled with grandeur and memory. But for those who claim to have glimpsed a figure at the window or felt her unseen presence at their side, it is more than a historic estate. It is a reminder that even a queen may linger bound to the place she loved most, keeping watch over her island retreat. Which story lingered with you tonight? Share your thoughts, and pass this video on, and subscribe to Creepy Experience. Keep the hauntings alive by adding your hype in the first days.